Please add everyone.
I don't really see everyone else.
Devshri, just adding, ma'am.
Okay.
You hear me, ma'am?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah. Please continue, ma'am.
All right. So I hope everyone who was there in the previous session has made it to the question answer round. So post your question here and I'll make sure that I can answer as many as I can. All right. So the first question is, US law is quite different from Indian law. Will it be difficult to pursue an LLM from US after LLB in India? And what are the difficulties in the academic aspect that we can face? All right. So let me actually start by saying that everywhere you go in the country, any country that you go, the laws are going to be different. You're never going to actually have the same laws, right? So whether you do an LLM from US or whether you do an LLM from UK, Singapore, it doesn't matter if you are sure about what is that particular specialization you want to take in. And especially if you're planning to enter academics, then you should just know that what kind of specialization you're doing. So for example, if you are, let's say, planning to do LLM in the UK, then UK and Indian laws are quite similar. But at the same time, when you actually do an LLM in the US and know about the business laws or the IP laws over there, when you come back and enter the profession as a professor, for example, in a law school, the advantage that you have is that you can talk about laws of a different country. You can actually learn about the teaching style and impart your knowledge accordingly. So I wouldn't say it will be difficult to pursue an LLM in US after doing LLB in India. Everyone does it. Everyone goes to different countries from their native country. And as an academic aspect, definitely there is not much to worry about, because the main thing that they want you to do is know how to teach, know your subject matter, because you'll be teaching Indian laws and not exactly US laws or UK laws, right? So I wouldn't say there would be too many difficulties in that, and I hope I've managed to answer that. Second question that we have is, due to the pandemic, doing LLM abroad is quite difficult. Is it worth doing LLM online from abroad, from a reputed university?
Ma'am, do you want me to read the questions or you can read it on your own?
I don't mind reading it on my own, and if you want to read it, then you can do that as well. I'm okay with anything.
You can continue. Yeah.
All right. So do not go for an LLM online, because LLM isn't only about learning, it's also about the experience you get. My best memories of an LLM are not what I learned and not that I found my passion. It was actually the people that I met. So I actually met so many people from so many different cultures that there was a time when I was actually taking dance lessons from a Colombian person. She was teaching me how to do proper Colombian dance. And she wanted to know about what are the dance forms in India. And I actually taught her Garba, because I'm from Gujarat. So you do not want to miss out on that experience. You don't want to miss out on actually exploring a place, living out on your own, and just knowing what you can do with your life when you meet different people, know their stories. So do not do an LLM online from a reputed university. I would say you let this pandemic get over, defer your admission and go next year. And think of it from this perspective as well. If you want to take the bar exam and if you want to settle abroad, the best thing to do is wait right now and not go for an LLM. So I hope that helps you. Again, it's your decision in the end, but I wouldn't recommend it. Okay, what is more beneficial, pursuing LLM abroad or any NLU in India? Okay, so let me answer that by one. What is your main interest? Is it you want to settle abroad? If you're planning to settle abroad, then doing an LLM from India wouldn't make sense, right? But if you want to stay in India, you do not want to take any other bar exams abroad, and there is no other need that you have, then LLM from a respected NLU or any private law school for that matter, it's okay. You can do an LLM from India as well, because it actually does open up your perspective on what you want to do in your career. So it's not necessary that you do an LLM abroad, but LLM abroad will just have a lot more benefits in the sense that you learn a different style, you learn how to improve your verbal skills, you learn how to improve your writing skills, because the way of teaching and the way of writing and the way of approaching a task is very similar in while as a law student doing LLB and LLM. You actually won't experience a lot of different things that could benefit you in the end. So I would say that it's beneficial to do an LLM abroad, but if you do not have in mind a career abroad or taking bar exams, then you can definitely just do a LLM from NLU in India and improve your career aspects. And especially consider the financial aspect as well. So it makes a lot more sense to do LLM in India financially than abroad when you're not thinking about bar or career abroad. Do law firms and corporates give preference to people having LLM abroad? Like I said, they actually don't, because you're an international student, you've never worked with them, you've never experienced what their working style is. So they actually do not prefer having LLM students, but the entire thing changes when you have work experience. So when you have work experience and you've passed the bar exam over there, you're the same as a JD student or the local LLB student, wherever you're going, who has studied and is appearing for the bar. Your advantage becomes that you actually have work experience and that you have skills that the JD students don't. So even though the JD students, they've worked as a summer associate, you have the actual work experience, you have the actual training. So that's when you'll be given a slight preference despite your visa issues. But otherwise, they don't give preference. It's the hard truth. And a lot of times, that's why people struggle in getting a job. Is it beneficial to do an LLM in order to opt for judicial services? Well, I mean, I'm not really sure what the benefits are per se, but I would actually tell you that if you're going into judicial services, then having that exposure would definitely open you up to different perspectives that would help you in your judicial career. And having that perspective is really required, because when you leave, okay, so I'm sure like a lot of you have read Keshavada Bharti, right? I mean, who hasn't? And if you haven't, you should. But if you see the language of the judgment versus when you actually do an LLM and you read judgments there and you do read cases there, or the way they actually do a case summary, it's so different that even as someone entering judicial services, that perspective, that difference that you will be aware of would actually help you out a lot. So in ways, yes, it's beneficial to do an LLM. But again, do you really want to do an LLM abroad? If you're just going to enter judicial services in India, that's again your decision. And whether you want to take on that financial burden, because if you don't get any scholarship, you will be spending close to $100,000 in US, especially if you're planning US. About 40,000 euros if you go to UK or somewhere in Europe. I'm not sure about Singapore, but yeah, so you want to think about the financial burden as well. Which exam is easy? All right. I haven't taken either of those exams. I haven't taken TOEFL or IELTS because I got a waiver. Because my education was completely in English from start till finish, including law school. And I've taken all exams in English. I've actually never taken those exams. So I wouldn't know which one's easier. And you can actually ask for a waiver. You can apply for a waiver when you're applying for LLM, saying that I've actually studied in English throughout. I speak English and I've presented in English. I work primarily with English language. Then you would actually get a waiver. Can you have a dual qualification in two fields, like one in business, one in criminal, with some years of gap, of course? All right. I wouldn't recommend having dual qualification like that, mainly because when you're working abroad, it would give you a wrong idea, or it would actually not you, it would give the recruiter a wrong idea that you're not decided as to what you want to do in your life. So let's take your example of business and criminal. On one side, you've specialized in business laws, and the other side, you've specialized in criminal laws, which are such different that the application of both of them together would not be seen that often, especially if you're working on the transactional side. So I wouldn't recommend having such a dual qualification, but you can actually go for a dual qualification in IP laws and business laws. If you're working in startups, having knowledge of both of them actually works in your favor. So, and you can actually do a dual qualification within one LLM if you are smart enough to arrange your subjects that way. So that's actually possible. What if we do not get the subject of our preference in the university which we prefer? I'm not really sure what you mean by subject of your preference. Are you asking about if you do not get admitted into the specialization that you want? Or is it just the university in general in India? So this is from Shirsho Ghosh. Can you please just repeat your question? So that I have a clear idea of what you're asking. If someone wants to get into judiciary after graduation, would it be better to go for LLM first? All right, so I've already answered this question, but I'll just summarize again, saying that there are a lot of benefits to doing an LLM that could be applied in judiciary as well. So you can definitely go for LLM, and if you're not sure, then work as a law clerk under judge for a year and then go for LLM. So I've actually had a close friend of mine who law clerked under a judge for a year and then decided to go for LLM. And it worked out well in his favor. So that's the answer to that question. LLM in field of ADR is quite common. Okay, I'm not sure if that's a question, but yes, a lot of people do ADR LLM, but again, people who opt for ADR, not necessarily that they settle abroad. Some do return, and actually a lot of them return because ADR in India is booming right now. So having that LLM helps a lot of times. Does internship in marks and social work matter during your time of LLM entrance? Okay, so again, this depends on if you're going right after graduation. If you're going right after graduation, yes, your marks and your internships will matter because within your statement of purpose for your LLM, you will be talking about why you want to do an LLM. and what is your goal after completing the LLM. So your internships will matter over there, and you will be submitting a transcript to the college. So they will have a look at your marks. So yes, internship and marks matter a lot during LLM entrance. But if you're going after working for a few years, your internships of course don't matter. It's your work experience that matters. And your marks become secondary because you're entering into LLM after working for a few years, which means you have the practical skills, which will be given a lot more preference along with your letter of recommendations. What kind of work or activity should we start from our college days to get a good law school college from abroad? All right, so the kind of activities that I would definitely recommend is moot court competitions. Even if you hate the idea of it, go for moot court competitions because those develop your legal research skills as well as your communication skills. And when you have those awards like the best speaker, the best memo, finalist, and if you've especially attended international moot court competitions, they definitely help you out a lot. So that is the first activity I would recommend. Second is working on projects, entering different societies within your college. So for example, Jindal had a corporate law society, a different society for IPR, where professors were the main people who handled it, and we were given projects. So having that research projects, working with a professor as a teaching assistant, all of that actually helps a lot in creating your CV apart from internships. And I would definitely recommend having a little bit of fun while in your law school. Like for me, most of my activities were basketball, tennis, dance. I did few moot court competitions, but my biggest achievement was that I actually presented papers abroad as a law student. And I was actually given the youngest scholar award in one of the um, conferences. So that was my highlight. Like that was the one reason that probably Berkeley saw something in me apart from my SOP, and my letter of recommendations were from the highest respectable professors that were there in my university. So I made sure I worked with certain professors so that I could actually gain that experience, improve my research skills, and when I do apply for an LLM, I could have asked them for help, which I did. So I would recommend those activities, and definitely keep your hobbies. Like you don't have to constantly work on just improving your CV. What is the scope of being a professor abroad and in India? Okay, so if you want to be a professor abroad, first they require you having work experience. They definitely want you to be a PhD candidate, and they require you being passionate in whichever subject you want to teach. So most of my professors in LLM were actually people who have worked for 12, 13 years in international law firms. They were so passionate about that subject, they've actually written a lot of research articles. They're a PhD candidate at the same time at that particular law school. So that way, being a professor abroad, you require a lot of qualifications beforehand. And two, it's a very well-respected community because when you're a professor at Harvard, Berkeley, Stanford, Yale, all of the Ivy League and the top 10 universities or Oxford, Cambridge, your entire, the way you are changes, and the way your profession takes shape, it actually changes. Whereas in India, I would say that most law professors that we've seen hold an LLM degree and are really good at research skills, but the qualifications are less. So your career would probably move forward at a slower pace, I would say, because if you directly enter academics and then you decide you want to actually go work in a law firm, it'll be difficult, of course, because you've only taught and you've not actually gained the practical experience in doing the actual work. Whereas abroad, the difference is that you worked for so many years. So you not only know what the subject is, but you know every single law that has come out in those particular years. You know the practical application of that subject, which matters a lot. So that is the scope and the difference. How to take admissions. And what about tuition fees and scholarship availabilities? All right, so for LLM admission, how you can approach it, if that's the question, then I would say that the best way to do it is by first looking at your resume, your marks, if you're especially going directly after completing your LLB. Have a look at where you stand as a law student. If you're a topper, well, good to go, but that does not guarantee that you will actually get into your desired school, because apart from actually having those two things, you need to have a really good statement of purpose. And if your statement of purpose is not good, then you probably wouldn't get admission. So I would actually say that for admission, focus on your statement of purpose. You can actually cover up your bad marks or average marks by your excellent statement of purpose and letter of recommendations. Second, if you want to decide how you should actually go about deciding which college to go, then Harvard, Columbia, NYU, all of these colleges in US, they do not take you in if you don't have 2-3 years of work experience. So you can omit them directly off your list if you want to do your LLM right after graduating. Sorry?
I'm sorry to interrupt. We have 5 to 10 minutes left for the session.
Oh my God, and there are a lot of questions.
Yeah. So you can choose the questions which are of utmost important, and you can leave other questions.
All right, so I'm gonna do this. If I haven't answered your question, Atin, if you have like an email list, could you just share my LinkedIn profile with everyone?
Definitely, ma'am. I'll share it.
Yeah, so that way, if I haven't answered your question, you can just directly reach out to me on LinkedIn. And over the weekend, I will answer all your questions. So Saturday and Sunday, this is a weekend. Great. So I can answer all your questions. Quickly about tuition fees and scholarship. Well, tuition fees are given on the website of every college. Scholarship, not a lot of international students get it. There are a lot of scholarships available from India, but it's so competitive that the chances of getting it are literally 5%. So if you have financial burdens, understand that you might not get a scholarship. Can you pursue an LLM degree on subject which is different from your LLB? Yeah, of course, you can actually pursue an LLM in whichever area you want. Like I said, if you actually were interested in international law and you did a lot of international law subjects during your law school, and you realize that, oh my God, I'm not interested in international law, but I'm actually interested in ADR because I did this one subject and I really liked it a lot more, you can always go ahead, even if you've written a different paper on international law. The way I would ask you to go about it is pursue a LLM after 2 years of work experience in the area that you want to do your LLM. It makes it easier to explain your statement of purpose as well. What kind of preparation is required for LLM abroad? Okay, so like I said, a lot of thoughts go into it, and in the previous session we touched upon all of that. For example, your career abroad, whether you want to settle down over there, your bar exam, if you want to take a bar exam over there, career in academics. So while preparing for LLM, sit down, think about all of those points. Then think about the financial burden that you'll be putting on yourself. Then once you've actually thought about all of that, start writing your statement of purpose. Your statement of purpose will take you 2 to 3 months to finalize. So that is the main preparation that goes in, apart from meeting the deadlines of all law schools. I don't think there's anything else that you need to worry about, especially because you can ask for a waiver for English language. How expensive is LLM abroad? Like I said, US easily around $100,000, which would include your housing and everything. UK would be around 40 to 50,000 euros, including housing, healthcare, tuition fees, and your extra expenses. Singapore, I do not know, but you can just have a look at the normal breakdown of your tuition fees, which will give you a rough idea and about how expensive will it be in that part. Would my Indian law undergraduate degree be accepted overseas as it is, or would I have to add on more subjects according to the country preference and complete undergraduate and then further do an LLM there? Okay, so if you're doing BA LLB, it's recognized. Like if you've done an LLB in India, it's recognized. So you don't have to worry about that. However, if you've just done BCom and you want to go pursue a different, you've not done LLB, for example, but that's not possible. So that is just like if someone had done BCom and then you're going for MBA, then you would have to actually do minimum 4 years of undergrad, which is the rule in US that you need 4 years of undergrad. But otherwise your LLB is recognized and you don't have to worry about that for LLM. How LLM abroad will work in Indian legal system, like Companies Act govern the company within our country, how foreign qualification makes me perfect law to govern our Companies Act. Alright, so if you're planning to do an LLM and come back to India, I would say like how you govern your like the Companies Act in India, your perspective changes, the way you think, the way you would actually solve a lot of issues. That's what's going to change for you. So I would say that's how LLM abroad will give you a change in the system and how you can actually tackle it. But apart from that, there's not much that would help unless you take the bar exam. So if you take the bar exam abroad and actually qualify as a lawyer in that particular state or country as well, then that would actually change how you come back and work as a lawyer in India. Because now you would have a dual qualification that will help you in not only tackling issues of Indian laws, but actually even have the ability to, I would say, tackle with foreign law resources and knowing exactly how you can act as a foreign lawyer as well as an Indian lawyer in India. So that's how LLM will help you out. What are the major criteria that needs to be fulfilled? Again, the major criteria is that you have the minimum basic degree for LLM, which is you've done your LLB and you have, so of course, if you've done BA LLB, then it's 5 years. That actually is the major requirement, that you've completed at least minimum 4 years of undergrad, which is covered in the 5-year course. And if you've done 3+3, then that's also covered. The other major criteria, I would say, is your SOP, statement of purpose, and your letter of recommendations. And of course, your marks. A lot of universities do look at marks when you're a fresh graduate. But if you're looking for Ivy League schools, then you will require 2-3 years of work experience, without which you will not get admission.
And can I read out more questions to you?
Sure, go ahead.
what is more beneficial, working in corporate field or doing LLM from NLU in India after
I've
LLB?
actually already answered that.
All
I'm
right.
way down. Okay, so it's okay. I'll just go ahead and continue. How many law schools should I apply for LLM? All right, so I actually applied only to Berkeley because I was very sure that I wanted to go to Berkeley for some reason. And I do not regret that decision. So I only applied to Berkeley when I decided to do LLM. But you can actually apply to how many ever law schools you think would be beneficial to you in terms of their courses, the law professors that they have. So look at all of those points, like where are you getting the best law professors? What are the courses that are being offered by that school? And then accordingly apply. And if you're looking for a specialization, then look at, for example, for business laws, Berkeley is known for business laws and IP laws. So if you know that these three particular schools are good for specialization in business law, then apply to those three schools. But make your decision based on if you can actually get accepted into it or not. So consider your marks, internships, your work experience, everything included. Does the experience of working in a tier 1 law firm in India only hold value, or working in a less popular firm has also similar value? Well, tier 1 law firms are sort of more recognized in US at least, because they actually work with tier 1 law firms a lot more often. So for example, at least on the transactional side in business laws, when you're working on a merger or an acquisition, there are a lot of times when there will be a subsidiary in India, and a lot of these firms approach tier 1 law firms. So I know for a fact that a friend of mine who had worked in Cyril Merchant for 3 years, when she actually went for the interview, it was like, oh, Cyril Merchant, we've worked with Cyril Merchant for a lot of times. So that's actually recognized. So I don't know whether less popular firms are recognized as much or not. But if you have work experience, that's going to count. So don't look at just where you work, but look at the kind of skills you develop. So even if you do get an interview, focus on the skills that you've developed. Tell them how those skills you developed working will help you out and will make you a better candidate for that position. What is more beneficial, working in corporate field or doing LLM from NLUs after LLB? Okay, so if you want to work in corporate field and you want to do a LLM from India itself, then I would just say that go ahead and directly start working in the corporate field. I mean, you don't really need an LLM in India because you've already studied corporate law in India. So when you enter as a fresh law graduate in a law firm in India, and let's say you actually go to Trilegal or NDA or AZB or CAM, SAM, whichever, then it wouldn't really matter if you have an LLM in India and whether you have specialized in a corporate law subject or not, because you have studied in India, you know the laws of India, you know how they work. So I would just say start working. That's more beneficial to you. And if you're sure about a specialization, I would consider doing an LLM abroad and think about.
Please take the last question.
All right. All right. Let me just. What should be the strategy through that just for LLM? All right. So I wouldn't say there's a specific strategy, but like I said, if you're a fresh graduate and you want to go to Berkeley or NYU, then your main strategy should be how you can get the best letter of recommendations, as well as your statement of purpose. And like I said, other Ivy League schools, they do not accept students. Like, you can apply, but you will be on the wait list or be rejected because you have no work experience. Only if you have work experience do they actually take you in, which is the same case at Stanford. They don't take you in unless you have work experience. So for me, when I applied to Berkeley, my letter of recommendations were from 2 judges who served in the International Court of, I forgot the full form, ICJ. And one of them was a professor with whom I had presented my paper abroad. So because of that, I actually, I think my letter of recommendations are what got me through. I'm sorry if I've taken too much time, but
the session is going to end in 1 minute. So
all right, so I think I'm going to stop there, and I'm going to ask everyone to just reach out to me on LinkedIn.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for the wonderful session. And
thank you for inviting me, and I hope that I have actually helped out a lot of students in any way that I can.
Definitely, ma'am, and thank you so much, everyone, for attending the session. Devshri, can you please stop the recording now?